Welcome to CyberKriya, where we invite guests with a passion and purpose. We talk about cybersecurity, we talk about enterprise cybersecurity, especially on the SAP. This is my fourth episode, and I was trying to chase my friend, my buddy. We call him I would say Mr. Celebrity in our community. He's the celebrity of our SAP cybersecurity community. He's the influencer. He's the one I would say I get inspiration from, whether it's going to SAP Insider or other conferences and sessions he runs. The passion, the smile, and just like the way he does and he presents himself. And I would say, at least for me, like my book, there was a angle inspiration from him. The thing I'm doing it, the podcast also, I took inspiration from him. I always was trying to chase him. And he's a busy person. Like if you are in our community, you would know whom I'm talking, and if you can see on the image too. So help me to introduce my friend Gabriele Fiata. We call by love Gabs. So Gabs, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Gaurav, and thanks for everybody joining us and looking at this podcast.
You're welcome, Gabe. So just for the audience, I know probably they already know about you, but maybe you want to introduce yourself, maybe just whatever you want to talk about. What do you do?
Yes, for sure. So I've been working as a cybersecurity professional for now more than 25 years. So that makes me feel a bit old, but I went from the old school pen testing into on-premises systems until looking after the cloud cybersecurity arena, which is what I do now. And I did that across different companies. I worked as a consultant for some big fours, and then I worked in end user organizations, and I'm now working for SAP since 7 years, I think now.
Okay. So you don't come from a SAP background. You are a cyber professional who kind of now responsible for helping secure SAP in your role, right? That is fair. Like you come from the cybersecurity, which we need, right? We need those guys, the experts to come into our world. So that is fair to say, Gabriel or Gabe?
It's very fair to say. So just to give an example, when I started many, many years ago, we used to do at the times, and I don't know if we probably still do it, but maybe not to this extent, but we used to do physical penetration testing. So we used to really go and try to reach the data centers of banks or companies. So to give an example, I have to, dress nicely with a suit and tie, go into a bank, waiting for somebody to open the door for me and say, thank you very much. So I could get in, until trying to get to the data center. And I used to walk around the offices and leave little USB sticks on the tables, and then check how many people will actually take those USB sticks, plug them in, and we will get an alert in our centralized dashboard, so we can actually report this to our customers, which was the company that actually hired us to make those pen testings. And imagine that this is all things that today are common sense. If you find a USB stick in the street today, you don't plug it because we hear it in the news. You never do that because it's so bad. That could be a way for an attacker to get into your laptop. But imagine 25 years ago when I started, there wasn't so much of this awareness. So it's funny because security wasn't as popular as it is today because the cyber threat wasn't as big as it is today. Still, there was a huge risk. Just that people weren't aware of it. So you can just imagine how many customers actually failed those tests. Another one was simply calling people on the phone and pretending to be from the company IT department, asking for user ID and password. Again, we used to have many, many users giving us the user ID and the password. Those are things that most probably today they wouldn't happen because we are just more aware about cybersecurity, which is also one thing that you do very well, Gaurav, creating more awareness about cybersecurity in general.
So now we know, or at least I know, where that whole looking smart and looking like a celebrity comes from, right? So you used to do that as a professional. Like you would be in a suit and try to do a physical pen testing. So
Yeah, that was part of the job. But I started also with SAP very early, just by chance, by case, because one of the first companies I was hired from was a company in the UK. They were making manufacturing and distribution of VHS. You remember the VHS and the
Yeah.
DVDs? Once the VHS got replaced by the DVDs. And they were in the Pinewood Studios of London in the UK, where they used to make James Bond, the movie. And I used to work there because all our business, imagine, was based on SAP. So the company was running SAP, and security was actually a business unit. And I'll tell you why. Because imagine that we were working, all our customers at that time for this company, they were producers and distributors of VHS and DVDs, so of movies, right? I'm not gonna make any names, but think about the biggest movie producers companies that we know, right? And imagine that all of them would share the same system. So they will have the pricing informations, customers information, everything in one system. So we had to, number one, defend the crown jewel from external attacks. Even though it was 25 years ago, there were still, of course, threats to the system from an external perspective. Also internally, imagine that internally, we really had to ensure that any user from any of those companies that would have access to this central system, would have been allowed to go and see pricing information, or to change pricing information from other companies. So let's say I did the baptisms of fire. My first company was a company where security was one of the main reasons they existed.
Wow. So I think I didn't know this part of Gabe's even after knowing you, I would say for some time. So I'm glad we get to know about that part, and also know about why you are so good, because you are a cyber guy doing a physical pen testing, securing businesses, supporting all this, I know, videos and the James Bond movie I heard. And you look like James Bond too, Gabe. So again, I always
Not the same accent, not the same accent.
I know you'll blush it. I think actually you mentioned that maybe you should try like acting in a Bollywood movie. I can try to
Get me a
because
role. Get me a role.
yeah,
Get me a role.
yeah,
I'll give it a go. I'll give it a try.
yeah. Because I feel like yeah, I think we need to look more normal, right? Because I feel like cyber is, as you said, cyber has become such a normal. Everybody and get like, okay, I want to be in cyber. But when you say I want to be into SAP cyber, or I want to do secure SAP, that's not still not that like as normal as it's still a closed word, right? Like we have a small SAP word, we only know SAP. But if you just talk a kid who's doing his masters or undergrad in cyber security, they don't even know about SAP, right? There's a whole kind of a plethora of jobs, and the way SAP is, because SAP is the system for securing the crown jewels, right? But it still seems like it's such a foreign when you just go out. Even if, for my daughter, like I know you if you have to explain our daughters, our kids, right? SAP is still like that's something which only is limited to like the one who are in SAP, right? So what's your take on that, Gibbs? I feel like how do we, and that's the we always talk about it,
Mhm.
like how do we make it? I don't know, it has changed now. You
Yeah.
said this has changed now, and people understand now. But I think I want to, like we should be doing everything to get the next generation get inspired to say I wanna do cybersecurity for SAP. Like
Yeah.
as they say, I wanna be an ethical hacker. I wanna be a pen tester. But so maybe just going back to again your journey, how does that, so that for you coming into that whole SAP world happened by chance because you were supporting a customer and then you saw SAP? Like what was the aha moment for you? Like how did that kind of a thing came in? Like, okay, I'm a cyber guy, I do physical pen testing, I do the real cyber thing. But then I work for a customer or company, then I see all this the crown jewels. So what was that aha moment for you? And I asked the same question to Mariano and Jay and JP. So what was your aha moment?
Okay, I'll answer this, and then we'll jump on the previous point you made about how do we explain what we do to people which are not secure, or do not know what security is, what cybersecurity is. But to answer this one first, so basically, what made me think I want to be in security, right? So what made me think, oh, this is what I love to do. This is what I want to do for the next 25 years now, but hopefully there will be many, many more. So let's take a step back. So what's for me, because this is something I was thinking about the other day, and I think it's fascinating. So if I think about what is the most important skill that you need to have to be an outstanding security professional? If I think about it, there are many things, of course, but if I had to pick one, I wouldn't say it's any certifications or being great in, I don't know, mathematics or any other subject. Of course, if you have certifications, if you're great at school, great at mathematics, great at developing things, then of course it's all a plus. But if there is one thing that for me is the most important thing you need to be a great cybersecurity professional, is to have a hacker mindset. Now, which is also the most difficult skill to find in our industry, to be honest. Now, what's the hacker mindset? What's the hacker mindset for me? So for me, it's very difficult to define, because it can be different from person to person. But I think there are a few signs. I call them the signs that tells you whether you will love to be a cybersecurity professional in the future. So the first one I would say is you just don't take no as an answer. The second one, if you find yourself often thinking, oh, there must be a better way, an easier way, a quicker way to do this, But also, you need to be comfortable with just failing, keep failing, and quickly just try again. Fail and try again, fail and try again. You need to be comfortable with that. Again, this is a natural skill to have, right? You need to be comfortable with failing and try again, failing and try again. And then you basically just need to be somebody who question assumptions that others just take for granted. And you basically love to test the boundaries. And this is not just to break rules, not often or always to break rules, but just to understand how far you can go, how far you can go until you understand a system more deeply, a process more deeply, and you really understand, is that really the best way, the more efficient way, or are there other ways in? And that's, for me, is the hacker mindset. So if you find yourself having some of those or all of those, I'm pretty sure that you will have a job in the security industry, because I truly believe this is the number one skill to have. And again, probably the rarest and most difficult skill to find in the market in our industry. And go back to your questions, I obviously recognize myself in many of those points that I mentioned. I did recognize myself in those in the past, and just naturally, I found myself that I loved doing it. If you don't love this, and you tell I'm curious to know your opinion as well. But if you don't love these things I mentioned, how can you love being a cybersecurity professional?
Yeah. So I guess you said not taking no, right? Second
Yep.
was finding a better way.
Yeah, yourself thinking when you do a queue, you do something and you think, come on, really? Is this the process? I'm sure there is a better way. Let me try something else. Let me try a better way to do this.
So not taking no, finding a better way. Third was failing, right?
Failing
Failing and
quickly,
still
failing and just be
coming back.
comfortable with failing.
Yeah.
And try again quickly.
Okay. And what was the fourth and fifth one? I think we gave five, right?
It just
I'm just trying
questions
to.
what others take as a grant. Most people, they take things as granted. This is the way we've been told things work, and this is what we should do. Even at work, in business. Oh, this is our process. This is how we do it. Question, is that the best way to do it? Can we innovate that? Can we make it better? And when they say no, remember, first point, you take no as
Connect.
an answer. You take no as an answer. I say, you're saying no, let me try. Let me see. Let me check myself if I can break that process. And if I can break that process, then I can make it better. I can come back to you and say, hey, actually, there is a way to do it better.
Was there a fifth one or that was it, right? I'm just trying to summarize for anybody listening, kids listening, anybody thinking, how do I become like a Gibbs? So
Yeah, and then
I don't,
maybe the last one I mentioned was test boundaries. Just test boundaries in a nice and healthy way. Again, we
in
could
an
talk
ethical way. Yeah,
very
we're not saying,
deeply
yeah,
about this,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's
Okay.
something that you actually grew up with, to test boundaries. I'm not saying breaking rules, but just test, if the kids they can test boundaries and are smart in testing boundaries and love testing boundaries, I think they're the one that in the future could be best suited for a cybersecurity job.
Okay.
How does that sound to you?
No, I'm gonna I think try and to see how do I see myself at least doing few, if not all, but I can totally relate to it. So thank you, Gip. That was amazing. Um, so that was for cyber security. Somebody trying to, if they have those skill set or they can build those skill set. I think cyber does bring some kind of passion and purpose, right? I feel like that passion piece also, it's so exciting, right? That excitement also I would add it, right? So people always complain, there's all the surveys, right? 80% of whatever professionals in US or globally, they don't love what they do, blah blah blah. I feel like even for me, when I was like a maybe not thinking like a cyber, I may have questioned like, is it my why? But I feel like once I realize this is my why is, I feel like the excitement, the purpose, the passion is always the challenge. Getting something every day is always something going on, right? That also help, right? I think having your why, right? Do you kind of agree with that, Gibbs? I know you have your why because it shows in your passion. It shows in your 10 sessions you take or 5 plus. You're always on the floor and SAP Insider. That's where I met you first time. I'm like, who's this guy? Like the passion and the way you do it, right? So I think you have your why, right? That is your why and purpose, right?
Yes. I mean, and exactly. So again, if you're that obsessed with security and innovation that you can't wait to tell the world what you're working on, what you're doing, what's new, then you find it very easily to just go and show the passion everywhere, at any conferences or podcast or webinars or anything that you do. Yeah, it all comes from passion. From passion, yes. I think it's all that.
Yeah, and also one part people say they see Gabe's going to conferences and doing 10 sessions, but they don't see the effort and you and then the whole, I don't know, you're traveling, I don't know, 20 hours, whatever. You are in Europe, right? So you are in Europe, you're coming to US, I think then you're going somewhere else. I heard there was one time you were like traveling like within a week to different regions or places. So people don't see that, right? Like that, it takes effort, genuine effort. It's not, you're not just doing it for because it's your job. You're doing it because you love doing that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It's not always easy because again we do many things. We have a daily job, and going and present at conferences is sometimes part of a side job, which includes, like you said, traveling. I'll give you an example. A couple of months ago, I was invited to speak at a partner event in Vegas, Las Vegas. But I had another meeting with a customer back in Europe, so I could only go to Las Vegas for one night. Imagine that. So you present, say one night, you go back, and then you have to be awake and present again. But then there is all the time difference, and so there is a lot of effort that goes within doing this role, this job. But at the same time, what makes it less painful again is the same thing, is the passion. It's loving what you do. I don't think, I will never be able to do it if I wouldn't love what I do. Uh, not the way I do it. Maybe I will do my job because everybody needs a job, right? So maybe I'll do my job, but not in the way that I do it. Um, I need to have this passion to perform, and I even like, I like when people enjoy what I present. I like when people like what I do, like my ideas. I really like that. I'm a people person. Um, that's again something I didn't natural have. I need to have people interactions. I need to see faces of the people, if they like or not what I'm presenting, what I'm saying. I always like to ask opinions, please share, tell me what you think. I want to know what you think. Yeah. I think that's what drives me as well. It's the connection with the people, the community.
Yeah, and I think when I was doing the research, I think, and I asked all this AI and Word to give it even name. It gave me, uh, it says community builder. So I would hire community builder and innovator, Gabriel Gabriele Fiata. So that's the name I got when I was trying to create this, some kind of a title. You always have to find, you always have AI help today, right? So I totally agree. I think you are the people person. And I think I look up to you on things you do to even learn, to get inspired. I know the book thing, I know we haven't covered that part. So even the book inspiration, you had a role to play. I know maybe you were the first person I talked about the book idea.
Yeah,
Um,
remember, yeah.
and, and I mean, you helped.
Great book, by the way. Great book. Very good book.
Okay, so I think I have it on the back, but yeah, so
I have it in my room.
so
It's
yeah,
my bedtime reading sometimes.
no, okay.
It's good.
So
It's
I think
great.
that's why I think you are a community builder and innovator, and you're inspiring like somebody like me, even helping. And it's not easy, like you and the way you're doing your job, the family and travel, and it's still taking time to even come on my podcast. Right, so I'm really appreciated. One thing I wanted to call it out here. If you can see, we're wearing black, and this is not planned. I know. I think it shows we think alike. There's some
The
plant on
hacker
the back,
mindset is the hacker mindset.
hacker mindset. You can see a plant, big plant on the back of Gabe's. I think I have somewhere here too. So, so I think, yeah, I just love it. So, Gabe's, again, thank you. So, I guess continuing back to the same thing we mentioned, right? That whole why and purpose. So, our audience, I would say, is either a cyber professional, a kid, because I'm pretty sure people reach out to you, kids reach out to you, and you do other things too, right? So that I think piece is good. The 5 key points, and maybe find your why. But let's switch to the SAP community, especially for the SAP security community, right? I feel like, and that's the reason we wrote the book, right? And in the things we're talking, that SAP security traditionally has been more focused towards GRC, role based user, things like that, which is now, and we see it's changing now, it's expanding. People are doing include like entire cyber, like
Yeah.
vulnerability management, about threat management and incident response and whatnot. Right? So somebody listening to our podcast, listening to you, Gabs, uh, like what would be your advice to them saying if you are SAP security or doing GRC work, how do you become like somebody who not just doing two part of the security, you're doing everything in security? Maybe we can even cover some of the cloud and things we get, and if we can get time today, maybe in the next episode. In case, but maybe I'm gonna start because I feel like that is the key thing which I'm trying to solve. Like, how do we make it this kind of a whole effort, like expand, bring in the next generation of people like you, inspire kids, inspire somebody who's already in SAP world, they understand SAP, maybe a basis guy, a security guy, or even SAP. I feel like even a developer. I think that the developer, if they become security, they are deadly because they can know the code and they can also know how do we secure it, right? So what's your take on that, Gabe?
And it's a great point. And you're right. In the past, SAP security was usually associated with user access management because those were the times where we were not so exposed to cyber attacks. You didn't really have in the news companies being attacked. Maybe you had one every 2-3 years, the old ones that we remember, but not like one every week like we have now. So security in an SAP system was all about segregating access from people having access to the system, people from the company that the company actually trusted because they hired those people. At the same time, they wanted to ensure some security. They wanted to ensure that they could only do the part of responsibility that belonged to them. As an example, they didn't want people to be able to create a purchase order for buying 10 laptops and then the same person approving that order because they could basically ship the 10 laptops to their home for Christmas, for the holiday season and give it as a present. That's what it is. Now, like you said, has changed a lot because the attack surface is much bigger. The attackers they've learned SAP systems, so they're more familiar with SAP systems, like with any other ERP systems, and also they have more technologies to support them with attacks, like AI, for example. AI can significantly improve the quality and the quantity of attacks. Of course, SAP being historically good at securing their ERP systems, of course, provide a level of protection and a perception that companies have that their systems is secure. However, there is always a way in. And I think nowadays people have heard this phrase a million times, but it's very true that it's not just about if you're gonna get hacked, it's when you're gonna get hacked. You need to assume that you will get breached one day. And then you need to ensure that you have everything in place as a control, as a security measure to limit and mitigate the damage as much as possible. So to go back to your point, how do we get security professionals to go away from users, roles and administration, user and access management, and to look at the broader picture, whether you are a basis person, a developer, an SAP security, or anything else. It's of course it's different from company to company. Of course, there is no one fits all. However, the way I see it is that in a logical way, so logically, the approach is to look, first of all, at business objectives. Every company or every person has a business objective. We have business objectives. We have access to the internet because we want to do some things. Companies have access to customers and to vendors because they want to do business and they have business objectives. If you start looking at controls without thinking about why are you controlling something, I think you're just going to go in a rabbit hole. So the first thing to do for me is look at your business objectives as a company. What are the key strategic business objectives of my company? What does my company want to achieve? Increase revenue, reduce costs, increase reputation, etc., etc., etc. Then, and of course, each company will have a specific business objective for a critical infrastructure like a energy company. The objective will be to get more customers and to ensure that they can provide energy to those individuals, to those communities on a daily basis, because it's not just a business, it's actually people's lives. They have an ethical responsibility to provide energy to the houses. Otherwise, there could be huge problems. So when you look at all those business objectives, then that's step number one. There's no doubt about that for me. So step number one, defining your objectives at a corporate level. Step number two, you map risks to those objectives. What are the risks which block your company to achieve those strategic objectives? For example, the example I made about the energy company providing energy to the houses. One risk could be, and there are many risks, but one risk could be, in order to achieve the objective, I need to ensure that my provisioning, my energy provisioning lines are not disrupted. Otherwise, people will lose energy in their houses. So that's my risk. So the risk is that if my lines get affected, then I cannot provide energy to my people anymore. So I cannot achieve my business objective. Once you have that, then you start to look into the controls. Then we start to get into control objectives and controls, where we really look at, and what I'm talking about, it's a simple risk and control matrix. But then when you look at the risk and then you go into controls, if you are a company, that energy company that runs SAP as a core ERP system to manage those processes, then you need to show that in your ERP system, for that risk, you have a number of controls that mitigate that risk to materialize. That can be access controls, it can be vulnerability management, it can be a basis configuration, it can be a vulnerability analysis on a code, which is done by a developer, just to mention some examples you made. And it can be more. It can be simply take it from the HR perspective. It can be simply somebody who get made redundant by the company and on his last days before leaving his role make something to disrupt business processes. It can be anything. But that's the way that you actually start to look at security, not just a one silo action or one control, which I think user access management is the number one control. We should do that. You actually start to really create controls only when it makes sense to meet a strategic business objective. Let me give an opposite example. Let's say you have a system with some data and many users, but that system doesn't really have any business processes that, if impacted, will seriously impact your ability to meet a strategic business objective. Do you really need to invest in controls in that system? Probably not. So it's all, and this is why I find fascinating also the cyber risk quantification. And I think more and more companies will be adopting more formalized processes to quantify cyber risk, because that's really the only way that you can be efficient to plan which kind of controls you need to implement and where you need to implement them in order to efficiently mitigate the risks so that you can achieve your business objectives. If you cannot quantify the risk, then again, you're in a rabbit hole. You just, putting controls there that perhaps are not really doing much for you. And maybe some of those controls, there is a lots of effort involved to testing them. And then if you don't really see the return on investment on it, then I think it's a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. I totally. Yeah, I love the way you said, right? I think find out your like start from an objective, go to the risk management, control, and then the system you care, right? As you see, you give the example of like if you have a system, don't put like a $10 lock on a $5 I
Yeah,
don't know,
that's
bike or whatever, whatever,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, 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 and then quantifying that risk and then ensuring. And again, we always say that security is a marathon, right? So if you're just trying to boil the ocean, you're gonna fail, right? And it's a lot of work. Like security is a lot of work, and it's not like you do one time and it's all done, right? It's a continuously checking the controls, making sure they are being done as they should be, right? And finding any exceptions or remediating any exceptions or mitigating it, right? Okay, okay,
Absolutely. It's constantly changing. And you're raising a great point. Actually, I was having a conversation with one of our customers some days ago, and we were actually thinking exactly the same point that you were mentioning. Years ago, it was enough to make a yearly check on your controls to ensure that those controls are still fit for purpose to mitigate certain risks. But nowadays, and those risks to mitigate the business objectives. But nowadays, companies' business objectives, they change super quickly. But not only that, even the risks that could impact those business objectives to be achieved, they change super rapidly. And the more you go down the ladder, the more you get closer to the controls that you need to mitigate those risks, the more you will see that those things change even more quickly. Like, especially with AI now, the ways that a risk is called the speed of onset. So the speed of onset of risks with AI is growing significantly because it can change. So today can be different from what it will be tomorrow, because tomorrow maybe they invent a new way, a faster way, a better way, a more accurate way to hack your systems. And this is why it's so important for companies to work very closely with the best threat intelligence companies out there. And I think we will see many more threat intelligence companies doing good business, because they are the ones that actually can look in the market and can tell us. I put myself also in the same scenario because I work for a software company. They can tell us, hey, watch out, because this is what's happening. This is where attackers are currently investing time with. You better change your controls quicker, otherwise your controls will not gonna be fit for purpose anymore very soon.
yeah. Because even as you said, the word has changed now, more so even for SAP. SAP is all cloud now. It used to be within a firewall, on-prem, but as we all know, with the often right rise and PC private cloud edition model or the public cloud edition model, and also BTP, right? So this is all new word even for us as a practitioner, but also it also changed the landscape. You say that the threat actor and the vector, everything, right? So that is also kind of a making like more responsibility on our end to first learn, maybe create a team, talk to your. So let me ask this other way. So if I'm a CISO and I'm listening to this podcast, Gabe, what one thing you would tell her or him to go and find out? Because this always I feel like, and it depends on the customer and the landscape how they are. But SAP, if somebody who's still responsible for securing SAP may not be under CISO's org, right? We have seen like different scenarios, right? So if I'm a CISO, the SAP security team doesn't report to me. Maybe they are in the SAP org. So what's one thing you would say to that CISO if they are listening to our podcast?
Okay. So I like to give practical examples. So maybe this is not a one fit all approach, but I prefer that to give a very vague and an abstract answer. So most of the times, I would say if you're a CISO and you having an ERP system, an SAP system, most of the times the best approach is the one of looking at the big picture. We were discussing before the business objectives, which a CISO will know very well. The risks, which are general. The risk has nothing to do with the SAP system. The risk is a general risk. The risk is the, it's it can be the like we said before, the inability to do something or to achieve a strategic business objectives. Once those risks are defined, then as a CISO, what I will do is I will look at all the systems that I have in my organization, and I will first look, okay, this risk related to this business process, in which of my systems is applicable. So if it's a finance process, you could say this is SAP, because SAP is where you run your financial accounting processes. It could be the same if it's a supply chain process, because this is where SAP is usually where you run those processes. And also, I would, even if I don't have people reporting to me as a CISO that are experts in BTP or experts in any other ERP solution that I use internally, S4HANA, BTP, Ariba, Concur, any systems that I use, I would still use the network I have at the board level. So my board colleagues, my executive colleagues, to ask for experts in specific systems to help me understand, as one of the first steps, whether that risk is applicable to any of those systems. It can be BTP, S4HANA. So an expert that can really tell me whether there is a chance that this risk could be applicable and exploitable in any of those systems. Now, why I say that they should leverage the network at the board table is because often, if you really look at the risk, the owner is rarely the CISO. The owner is usually the CFO or the head of supply chain. Those are the business people, because the impact, like we said before, the impact of a risk, even if it's a cyber risk, the impact is always on a business level. The ultimate impact is not that my system doesn't work or I have a user with support. No, that's not the end impact. The end impact is that if my system does not work, I cannot sell. If my system does not work, I cannot produce. I cannot ship. That's the risk. So that's the business risk. So as a CISO, if a CISO can make them even more clear and explain that in a more direct way to their colleagues, to their executive colleagues, then he will get the experts that he needs to make an assessment and understand whether this risk is applicable to any of those systems. Now, once he knows that, then he can put security measures in place for each of the systems where the risk is applicable, and it could be BTP, for example. But you will need then an expert in BTP that will tell you exactly where is the area where you need to look at. Then of course, when it comes to defining a security control, and this is a luxury that not many CISOs and many companies have, ideally, you would have a technical expert in each of those systems that will help you putting a control together. And again, not many companies have that. If you don't have that as a CISO, you can always put one of your security people with a hacker mindset to work together with a system expert and then create that synergy. So create that control. So you have somebody that can tell you how logically a security control will work, and the expert from the system will be able to tell you how to implement it. Then if you have budget and resources, there are many consultants, expert security, SAP security consultants, which with the experience that they've made implementing controls in BTP, S4HANA, or any other SAP system around the world with many customers across different industries, they're actually able to come with a kind of almost predefined list of controls that you need, and then kind of tailor it to your situation.
Thank
There's
you. Yes.
not an easy
Yeah.
answer, but that's what I will suggest.
No, I think that's when I was you're telling it, I was trying to map back to thinking like, how do I was thinking about new cybersecurity framework, because I love, and when SAP adopted the cybersecurity framework, you start from the whole govern function, the whole risk management piece, finding out your control, and then identify, right? And you need to know what SAP means for your business, right? It's not a technical problem, it's a business problem. It's a business security is a business problem, right? Like it's, as you say, the system is something has to happen. There's impact on the business, right? So speak in that whole business term, not a technical. Oh, you say SAP all, like, though nobody will understand what SAP all means, right, to the business, right? What the actual impact to the business with that security vulnerability, right? So thank you, Gibbs, for sharing it. And I was saying same thing to I think JP and Mariano, right? I think we need to have these discussions more often. So I'm gonna, I think, invite you. Maybe if I know you're a busy person, maybe second time too. But before we kind of come to the last part of our this episode, Gabes, let's talk about the whole. I know your I think your responsibility from SAP is more towards securing the whole cloud and the new journey the customers are embarking right now, the S4 transformation. I know every customer is moving on the S4 transformation, probably on the rise because it brings a lot of security by design, security by I don't know shift left and all those things we say. Right? So let's cover some part of it if you can, Gabes. And I think this is a huge topic. I think we have to do a separate podcast just covering that whole new world of rise and everything you guys are doing to help secure customers worldwide. But I want to cover some part of it in this episode too, if you like to, Gab.
So basically, when we talk about cloud security, maybe let's start with this, and then we take it from there. You let me know what's your perspective. So things have changed a lot in the way we run businesses from 25 years ago when I started working as a security professional until today. If I remember 25 years ago, it was just maybe the beginning of the internet, and the way customers will find customers, the way they will sell, the way they will market what they do was completely different. And it wasn't that visible to others. Like what we did, I remember what we did in our company wasn't very visible to others unless somebody, sales representative, would have gone and told to some customers about what we do. And nowadays, it's most of the companies, what they do, they sponsor it on media platforms, on the internet, so everybody knows about what your company does, and I think that's kind of a big change also from the way that companies are managing their systems. In the past, it was done all by themselves. Companies used to manage systems all within the four walls of their buildings, their data centers. And if we look at this from a security angle, maybe we could say that it was okay because, like we said before, it was more about defending the company against insiders than versus outsiders. The biggest risk was the insider risk compared to the outsiders risk. Nowadays, as we discussed, it has changed a lot. I wouldn't say that now the external attacks are always the highest risk for companies because you still have the insider risk, but I think on average it's kind of equal. The risk is kind of equal, and maybe in some cases the outsiders, external hackers risk, or attackers risk, it's actually higher, and therefore also the way that companies want to face those threats has changed. In the past, they used to do everything by themselves. I think now they're really looking for different perspective coming together to ensure that they can better protect their company. They want to have not just their own view on security of their internal people, which of course they know the business best, so they kind of understand which security must be in place to meet the strategic business objectives, like we discussed before. But they also want to have them perspective from other companies. For example, they want to have perspective from a company like SAP on the experience that we have in protecting infrastructures. Imagine that we currently in the private cloud only manage more than 160,000 systems. So we secure more than 160,000 systems. So you can just imagine the learning that we get every single day by securing so many systems. And all this learning goes in improving the way that we can better protect any of our customers. So all of this knowledge for the average company, it's impossible to have. Of course, we have big customers which have big teams, big security teams, but they don't manage 160,000 systems. So there is again, so there is the knowledge that they have, the companies have with their security people, that they understand the business best, complemented by SAP security knowledge in managing cloud infrastructures, but also backed by partners. We have a huge ecosystem of partners, as you know, at SAP, and all those partners, they kind of, in a way, fill the remaining gap on knowledge, on experience, and I think that's for me the great thing about cloud security is that collaboration of what we all know as shared responsibility model. That doesn't only mean that is less work for the customer, but it also means that customers get different perspective, and that can only be for the good of the company. The customer is still the end responsible for their security, the end responsible for their compliance. So they call the shots at the end. But they have all the support from SAP and all the support from the ecosystem of partners to help them succeeding with securing the business objectives.
Yeah, I think the one thing you mentioned about the shared responsibility model, I think I will just take that one because you cannot do everything, right? So join the best of the best, which is SAP. Move to the cloud where you get embedded security baked in. The filter of whatever expertise and partners, because it's a lot of work. Security is a lot of work, unless you are like you are a security, you're in the security business, you are not like doing something else. It's gonna be not easy. And then cloud is the where I would say the cloud is here to stay. I mean, for me, like I kind of started from not liking cloud, then I'm like big fan of cloud, even from security perspective too. I just love cloud because it gets you things. I feel like even the visibility and the things and the controls and things you can do, I think it's more secure by design, right? So
So, for example, on
yeah,
this point,
yeah,
to close the topic, so think about the classic triage: people, process, and technologies. From a people perspective, just think about, I don't remember how many thousands security professionals we have at SAP. You can imagine to manage all those, 160,000 systems. So we have thousands of security professionals. From a processes perspective, again, all those learnings we do by managing security and managing security processes across all those customers and across, I think, more than 26 different industries, including critical infrastructure. So including the critical infrastructure we were referring to before, which is where there is a lot of focus on security. And then technology, let's not forget how many companies, also customers I speak with, they struggle to get investments for security technologies. It can be simply a security technology you want to use to secure your SAP environment, or it can be a technology you want to use to secure your infrastructure, your application. Companies, they struggle to buy the latest technology when it comes to that. But with all the risk there is now with AI being used by attackers, if you don't really use the best of the best technologies for security, I think you could be in a dangerous spot. And one thing that customers see as great in the cloud is actually leveraging by default and by standard all the, let's call it, best of breed security vendors that we at SAP use in order to enhance the way we secure our customers. Because, you can imagine that for us, security is non-negotiable. When we have this responsibility of managing 160,000 plus systems, security is non-negotiable. So we have to invest heavily into the best technologies we have or they exist in the market in order to better secure our customers. Often the average customer cannot afford all those technologies. So that's another point that our customers see as very valuable in the cloud.
yeah. I can relate to it because the people, process, and technology. So it's not just the having a process. I think it's just about the do you have enough resources, and then do you have enough budget to support the technology piece too, right? So use the benefit of going with cloud and then what SAP brings by default and security
Yeah.
by design. So I think that can be a perfect closing remark, at least for this episode. I don't think one episode is enough, 50 minutes or 1 hour. I feel like we just need to keep talking, maybe entire day if you can. I know you are a busy person, Gabe. So I probably would let you go this time if you promise again to come back. I think we have to just go deep dive on just on the cloud thing. I feel like this is a worth because every customer on SAP side is embarking on their journey. So I think there's a lot of kind of a false sense of things like that. They don't know everything, and maybe so. I think there's so much to hear and learn from you on that. Maybe we also talk about the SAP Insider, the SAP security game you are leading. I think you did that in Vegas and EMEA, Copenhagen recently too. So I would love to hear that part too. But any last remark before I let you go for this episode? I know with the promise of coming back again, maybe second or third or fourth. I think we need to just keep talking. And I think maybe every once in a month gives. But any last remark or comment you want to just give to the audience?
No, first of all, I want to thank you for your time, and I had so much fun talking to you about security, about all the great things that we discussed in this session and episode. The final remark, I will bring it back to where we started, and maybe just a message to who wants to get into this industry, because we need more security people in our industry. Even if maybe somebody that you are somebody that working in SAP, maybe in your company, you are an SAP consultant, or you or a basis consultant, or if you like to test boundaries, if you like to find challenges, solving challenges, and if you you don't take no as an answer, then I strongly suggest you to try to get into security, because we need more people with this mindset.
Perfect. So and also it comes with the purpose and the passion, and then you find a better way, right? So
Exactly.
if they get inspired by listening to you, Gibbs, can they reach out to you
Of
via
course,
like maybe a
anytime.
LinkedIn? LinkedIn is the platform to
Yep.
reach out or to
Yeah, of
connect
course,
with
for
you,
sure.
to know more about and especially follow you. I think I'm like the one who follows you every day. I'm just get kind of inspired with, and again, I think you have been the a key pillar on everything I've been doing, getting inspiration. Even for this podcast, and we talked about it, doing it together. So maybe we should do maybe something also where we interview other people. I don't know if you would be open to it, but um, so I will share your LinkedIn if I think if you're fine with
Yeah, for
that,
sure.
so that
Yes.
anybody wanna just listen and get inspired and have questions. If you're a customer, if you're a SAP consultant, we will share that. And yeah, thank you, Gabes. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for inspiring even people like me and every generation. And I think we need to talk. I think so. I will only let you go if you say you will come back again. I know you're
I
a busy
promise.
person. So
I
promise. Okay.
promise. I promise.
So and yeah, Men in Black, right? So, and maybe we should have to do one with you and Jay and hear about the security game. I know he was
Okay.
talking we should do like together and talk about SAP Insider and conference. If that would be my another dream too, my wish list. So thank you, Gibbs, again. Thank you for
Thank
what you
you.
do.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for bringing your smile, your passion, for your purpose, and just energy to our community. I think you are the key pillar. As I always said, you are dynamic duo, you and Jay. So we need. So yeah, please keep doing that what you do.
Thank you. No, thanks, Gar, and thanks everybody for listening to this.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Thank you.